Hearts Around the World is the theme for the 2003 Florence Heart Ball. We'll take you behind the scenes coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at BB&T. We're focused on the 2003 Florence Heart Ball, and we're visiting with Dr. Evans Holland. Dr. Holland, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Incredible opportunity to highlight the Heart Ball, which will be held at the Country Club of South Carolina on February 15th. Think about so many activities that go on surrounding the Heart Ball and other Heart Association events all year long. To think about a cardiologist and to think about all the activities that a cardiologist is involved in. Wanted to think about spotlighting PD cardiology and your involvement in this year's Heart Ball. Can we talk real quick about yourself? Were you originally from the area?
Yes, I'm actually my family is from Florence, South Carolina. I moved back when I was 13 years old, so I call Florence home.
Is that right?
Right.
And how about PD cardiology? How long has it been in existence?
Well, PD cardiology has been in existence for approximately 15 years. Dr. Kamanachek is our lead partner. He was here in the late 80s and started with 2 doctors. We're now 13.
Golly, 13 doctors. Do you all have offices just here in Florence?
Actually, we have 6 offices. We have 2 offices here in Florence and 1 in Hartsville. We have another office in Bennettsville where we have a doctor up there, Dr. Naz. In the Loris area, we have a Loris office across the street from the hospital. And then at Seacoast, North Myrtle Beach, there's an office there also.
So 6 offices.
6 offices.
PD cardiology.
Right.
That's amazing, Evans. What about, do you still have family here in the PD?
Yes. My mother and father are here in town. I have my wife, Helen, and I have 2 children. Olivia, she's 4, and Billy, he's 7.
You getting them excited about the cardiology practice?
Well, actually, not really.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But hopefully one day, at least Billy, hopefully he'll be a doctor also.
That's exciting. That's exciting. What about your medical training? Had you studied in South Carolina? Or?
Well, actually, I did my undergraduate at Wofford College. Then I did 4 years of medical school at Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston. I then went to do my residency at Medical College of Virginia in Richmond, where I met my wife. Then after that, 4 years in University of Florida in Jacksonville, where I did 3 years of fellowship and 1 year on staff.
Dr. Holland, I'm just trying to add those years together. There was the Wofford, and then Columbia.
I'm sorry, Charleston.
And then up to Virginia, and then down to Florida. That's amazing.
It's like 15 years, I think it was.
How can you commit that amount of time to schooling?
Well, it was a long trip. Starting mainly at MUSC, started getting kind of tough there. But after 10 years of medicine, finished.
It's amazing. Why do you think you decided on cardiology as your specialty?
Well, actually, that's kind of a tough question. Not really sure. All I know is when I was in 8th grade, my grandfather told me how I was going to be a doctor. And since grandfather told me I was going to be a doctor, I had to be a doctor. When I was in college with the biology, I just sort of like the heart. In medical school, had more training on it, and then I just felt more comfortable doing that, and found a fellowship, and here I am.
It's amazing. What do you think prompted you to return to Florence? Was it familial ties, or? Well,
actually, I like to say I'm a hometown boy. I like Florence. Grew up in Florence. We have a farm. I wanted to be on the work out the farm a good bit. But when I returned in 1997, well, actually, when I left when I was about 18 years old, at that time I really wasn't thinking much about cardiology in the PD region. I just knew I just wanted to come back to Florence. Well, when I came back in 1997, that's when I realized that PD cardiology has a very high prevalence of heart disease. And ever since then, it's been tough keeping up.
Well, let's talk about that, the prevalence of heart disease here in the area. Not only, and of course, a lot of folks don't position Horry County or the Strand as part of the PD, but
Right.
in many ways it sure is. Of course, a lot of our viewers are in southeastern North Carolina as well, but probably some of the prevalence of heart disease and strokes here in the PD is something you can just give some general facts.
Well, general facts, the last statistics were done in 2000, and there's approximately 14,000 deaths from stroke and cardiovascular disease. And that pretty well goes down to about one death every 33 seconds for heart disease and one death every 3.5 minutes for stroke.
One death every 3.5 minutes for
Right.
stroke?
Mm-hmm.
And you said one death every 33
seconds.
That is
cardiovascular.
amazing. That's the numbers that are indicative of the PD area would be indicative throughout the country.
Right. Actually, the prevalence of heart disease and stroke in this area is probably worse than what it is throughout the country. And that's where the American Heart Association comes into play. Patient education. There are several major risk factors for heart disease and stroke. Family history of heart disease, very important. Diabetes, cholesterol, hypertension, and tobacco abuse. Also, very important is obesity, which is a major problem here in this area. And with patient education, the American Heart Association is trying to get to the population, try to stop some of these risk factors. It's also interesting that people say, well, I have a strong family history of heart disease. Well, is actually, do they have strong family history of heart disease, or do they just have a strong family strong family history of risk factors, be it the diabetes, high blood pressure, hypercholesterolemia, and tobacco abuse? If we could work on these risk factors, maybe we could decrease the amount of strokes and heart attacks in this area.
Let's talk real quick, Dr. Holland, about the difference between heart disease and stroke, or exactly. Last week we had a doctor on from Waccamaw Cardiology, Andy Gresco, talking about, and I asked him just to break down for viewers the basic difference between heart disease and stroke, and just assuming that all viewers are age 11, let's say, just give a quick plot summary as to the difference between heart disease and stroke.
Well, there's really not much difference. The major problem is atherosclerosis, which is hardening of the arteries. A stroke is actually hardening of the arteries in the brain, whereas a heart attack is hardening of the arteries in the heart. Basically what the American Heart Association is doing is trying to do research in the hardening of the arteries and trying to decrease the risk of heart disease and stroke.
Okay. And then what exactly happens when someone suffers a heart attack?
When someone suffers a heart attack, what is actually happening, we have the hardening of the arteries, there's a plaque rupture in one of the vessels. And the plaque, when it ruptures, it occludes a vessel. And our goal is to remove that plaque. And we can do that with medications and or angioplasty acutely.
Is one more serious or fatal than the other?
Well, there's three vessels of the heart. One's the left anterior descending artery, the circumflex vessel, and the right coronary artery. The left anterior descending artery is actually the front wall vessel, and that's probably the most important. It has the most distribution.
So the heart disease would be more...
Probably worse, usually if you have a large anterior myocardial infarction.
And how would someone know if they're a candidate? I know you talked about those risk factors, some myriad risk factors there that would be in family history as opposed to a family being a candidate for heart disease. How would someone know if they were a candidate for those risk factors? I mean, how can they think that through?
Well, actually, most people see their primary care doctors. They know if they're diabetic. They should know if they have hypertension. Everyone should have their cholesterol checked. And once again, tobacco, you have to work on that by yourself. There are some certain drugs out to help us with tobacco these days, but really, you really need to decide, I need to stop smoking cigarettes.
That is a big commitment. And why do you think obesity is such a problem in the PD?
Well, obesity, I think it might have something to do with pork. Everybody loves barbecue. But also, there's not a lot of exercise going on here. And also, the way people eat, sedentary lifestyle, and just decreased exercise is not helping obesity.
Dr. Holland, a lot of folks hear about the idea about taking an aspirin immediately after a possible cardiac event. Is that something that cardiologists recommend?
Well, actually, we believe that aspirin is the best thing since a beta blocker. And aspirin is, as you know, it's a painkiller. But actually, it's more of an anti-inflammatory medication. So it decreases inflammation. But also, what we found out that it does, it inhibits platelets. And platelets are small cells that go through your blood vessels, and they promote clot. So if we have a plaque rupture and clot forms, the aspirin does help decrease the clot formation.
Okay. In your experience here in the medical community since 1997, back here in Florence and active with the medical community, obviously, how have you seen some of the benefits of the Heart Association, not only in the PD region, but throughout the state or throughout the Carolinas, has had an impact on the medical community here?
Well, the American Heart Association, they are very big into research. Probably 35-40% of their monies go to research. And not only do they do patient education, but they do physician education also. There's the American Heart Association they have every year. It's a large meeting that 25,000 cardiologists go to. That's not only nationwide, but international too. We learn much about what's going on in the field of cardiology during that meeting. Also, research into new techniques. When I was going through my training for angioplasty, we had plain old balloon angioplasty. Now we're on our 6th generation of stents. Stents work. And new research now, which hopefully will be up in the next year, is the drug-eluting stent, which is a stent that should not restenote. In other words, hopefully we have found a silver bullet here.
That would be huge, Dr. Holland. That would be amazing. Can we ask one last question? I was thinking, why in particular you think the medical community or anyone throughout the PD should support the American Heart Association?
Well, once again, in this area, prevalence of heart disease and stroke is very high. And it's good to give back to the community as much as possible. I do believe the fundraisers here go for a good cause. They do not directly helping out in this area, but indirectly helping research and patient education.
Throughout the state of South Carolina.
Throughout the state of South Carolina, correct.
Dr. Evans Holland, PD Cardiology Associates. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. Good morning. Welcome back to Carolina People. This morning we're at BB&T. We're focused on the 2003 Florence Heart Ball, and we're visiting with one of its sponsors, Jeff Helton of Honda of South Carolina. Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Incredible opportunity all week to highlight the 2003 Florence Heart Ball, which will be held at the Country Club of South Carolina, I think on February 15th.
Yes.
Getting pretty dang close.
Yes.
Honda of South Carolina, big sponsor this year, supporting American Heart Association, the Heart Walk. I think back in September we had Brian Newman in, also
Correct.
One of the associates from Honda of South Carolina, in to talk about y'all's involvement in the Heart Walk, and I think y'all had a stupendous effort out there.
Yes.
A lot of folks in 2002. Can we talk real quick about yourself? Were you originally from the area, Jeff?
Yes, I'm a native of Darlington, which is about 10 miles from here. So proud to be part of the PD, and just been home ever since. Just can't really find anything better.
Very definitely. It's a great area. Do you have family here in the area?
Yeah, my parents still live in the Darlington area. I've got a brother there, and I've got some cousins in the area as well.
Is that right? And did you bring family with you when you came back to, where had you been prior to coming back to the PD?
I had spent just a small time up in Rhode Island working, and got a true appreciation when I looked on the television watching a sports event and saw that people were out in shorts enjoying the nice weather of South Carolina, and then made my decision then, I've got to get home. and ended up moving back, married a local girl, moved to the upstate for a short period, and then moved back into the PD and says, we're staying. And that's where we've been for the past 15 years.
Is that right? Do you have any children, Jeff?
Got two girls. One that's going to be a teenager. It's going to be a tough time there, but love her to death. And I've got a 9-year-old to be next month, February 16th.
Is that right?
So,
the day after the Heart Ball.
The day after the Heart Ball.
That'll be a big weekend.
Oh, yes.
What about, when did you join Honda of South Carolina?
Joined them back in 1997, back when the announcement was made. Joined them in the fall of that year, back when basically we didn't even have but a field out there to look at in a little small building downtown in Timmonsville that we met. We installed a trailer there and then slowly started ramping up our operation with the construction of the new facility here in Timmonsville.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what about your responsibilities as administrator for Honda of South Carolina? I know I want to talk in a minute about associates and what exactly are associates, but how about your responsibilities as administrator of Honda of South Carolina?
Administrator responsibility is to make sure the human resources and the accounting groups and the business planning groups are working and functioning well within the corporation. Speaking of Honda of South Carolina, we're now a little over 1,500 full-time associates at Honda of South Carolina. I don't think many of the viewers in the area even realize how big this facility's gotten just in a little over 4.5 years since we really started hiring the first associates. So, and associates, we're all associates. A lot of companies use the terminology employee. We like to call ourselves associates, and we all wear the same uniform. Today, this is a little bit out of character for me. Normally, we all wear the white uniform from our president all the way to our line associates, or what we call our production associates. We're there as one team, just like a good football team. As a team from the quarterback all the way through the linemen, we're all there together for one purpose, to score and win as a winning team. That's what Honda's about.
That's fantastic, Jeff. And you said the plant opened 4.5 years ago?
We opened and made our first product in July of 1998. Okay. So we consider that really our line-off of manufacturing production of our first product was in July of 1998.
And you said there are around 1,500 associates there at the Timmonsville plant?
A little over 1,500 now.
That is amazing. How large is the facility?
Oh, I'm not exactly sure on the square footage, but the new addition of the personal watercraft that we've added to the facility has definitely increased the size and added our capability of adding more associates opportunities here in the PD. So we're very proud of that new addition here as well.
You've got to be. You've got to be.
We are.
And you all will, and what's coming out of the PD will go all over the world.
Oh, absolutely. Right now, the watercraft is sold just domestically in the United States, but the ATVs go out throughout the world. Predominantly, the biggest market for us is here in the Southeast, but we export to Canada, Australia, Europe, South America. So, I mean, all over the world, our product is sold.
That's amazing, Jeff. Obviously, our focus today is on y'all's support of the 2003 Florence Heart Ball. But Honda of South Carolina has been supporting a heck of a lot of local charities since its inception. What are some other charities that you all are involved in?
Well, from the conception of the company, we got directly involved with the school district and the Parks and Recreation, giving them some donations right off the get-go. As we've also moved into the future, we've gotten into the Cancer Relay for Life, United Negro College Fund here in the area, plus many, many others that we've been proud to be able to serve on the board and be a part of some of the donations as well. We're still a very young company, still trying to strive and grow. We just want to fit in and be a part of this community, and we're very proud to be a part of it as it is now.
Absolutely, Jeff. Why do you think Honda of South Carolina selected American Heart Association? So many charities locally to support, the opportunity, so many groups in particular that need funds, particularly when we've had guests in all week talking about the sponsorships in a community that's been so tight recently. The ability to give back and to give back to the American Heart Association is a wonderful group. But why do you think Honda of South Carolina chose American Heart Association as one of its charities of choice?
Well, a few years back, it kind of hit home for a lot of us. We've been supporting it for years, but one of our associates had a heart problem and ended up passing away on us. And we miss our associate, and that one really hit home for a lot of us. And from that standpoint, we've wanted to be more active and be a part of the Heart Association in our community. With the Heart Walk, we saw some 80-some-odd associates come out and participate that day in the Heart Walk. So that was just one example, and the donations that poured out from our associates that they gathered. You know, of course, having 1,500-plus associates now, I challenge the rest of the associates to come on out and make that 80-some plus over hundreds next year. So we want to definitely grow that particular area. But the loss of our associate with a heart disease really brought it to heart for all of us that we wanted to be more of a part with the Heart Association.
That's wonderful, Jeff. And it's something that personal that can oftentimes drive home the support if you had a child that was born with a birth defect, really getting you involved with the March of Dimes.
Exactly.
Or a family member who's battled cancer of any sort, getting you involved with the American Cancer Society. The amazing thing about the Heart Association, of course, is it's not only battling heart disease, but as we heard all week, also battling strokes. And strokes are such a prevalent cause of death, not only in the PD. I think somebody said that really one of the worst existence of stroke in the U.S. is here in the Florence area.
That's correct, is what I'm understanding as well from the research. We really got to educate our family members and community the issues that go on within our community and heart-related diseases.
Jeff, has Honda of South Carolina supported other heart balls in the past?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And heart walks, obviously, and to have gotten 80 folks out there. I know when Brian Newman came in to talk about you all supported the heart walk, I don't think he ever expected you would have that many associates out.
That's a fun, great day. We go out and have a great time. We've got design contests with our associates to determine what kind of T-shirt design we're going to use. So our associates kind of help us pick out the design of our own T-shirts.
And you all reached your goal?
Oh, yes. We actually exceeded our goal by a little bit, but it's exciting to be able to do that. You always want to reach it, but to exceed it is a dream come true for a lot of us that it went over. Very
definitely. You know, a lot of viewers, I think about how you can become an administrator and be that involved with a company as large as 1,500 associates here, Honda of South Carolina. How do you go about? What did you do in your youth, Jeff? What were you involved in that helped set the stage for you to become so active with a magnificent company and take on the role as administrator?
I guess my career started out basically bagging groceries in the grocery store in a local Piggly Wiggly. I mean, and we actually used bags versus the plastic sacks that they have today. Mm-hmm. And I got to working with people, and that got me to having a true appreciation of how different everybody is. The way people like to have their groceries bagged from way back then carried on into the day of how different everyone is and how unique each individual needs to be handled. So just the sheer dealing with people is what I enjoy the most. Everyone has a different issue, and theirs is the most important to them at that time. No matter what you've got going on, it's important to listen to what that person has and try to work with them. You're not always going to be able to give them the answer they want to hear, but being able to work with them is the main key.
That's a very good point. Has there been anyone in particular during your adulthood that has inspired you, Jeff? Anyone that you think back on that gave you an opportunity to get to this point as administrator of Honda of South Carolina? Someone at an early age, whether it was a parent or a minister or someone in school, a football coach, I know you talked about. Is there anyone in particular that's inspired you?
There's not one I can single out more than another. I've had a lot of great HR managers that I've worked for. I've enjoyed each and every one because of the unique opportunity that they afforded me. I've had some great plant managers that have taught me a lot of life skills that have taken me to where I am today. And, I thank Honda for affording me the opportunity to work with them and having the faith in me to be an administrator for them, more than 1,500 associates at this time. And, I never dreamed we'd ever get to that size of a corporation, but, they say build it and it will happen, and slowly the associates there have made this dream a reality. It isn't one single individual. It's our associates that have made it happen. And that's the main key, is making a product that a customer wants. And our associates are the driver of that. So to say there's one individual, I'm inspired by all the 1,500 plus associates out there every day that come to work and make a quality product for our customer.
That's wonderful, Jeff. Is there any accomplishment over the past year at Honda of South Carolina of which you're much akin to that last answer, that you're inspired by the 1,500 plus associates out of the Timmonsville plant? In the same way, it's almost difficult probably to gauge any accomplishment in particular over the past year of which you're most proud, but is there anything?
Well, achieving over 500,000 production units from just a little over 3.5 years hitting milestones of another product, one that Honda has never had before, a personal watercraft, and been afforded that opportunity to have that in the PD area. And now, just this past week, we announced to the associate 2 million safe work hours without a lost time. There's just so many achievements that we're starting to hit as milestones for our corporation that one just doesn't stand out above the all. But, I can't praise our associates enough for what support they've afforded me and the company and Honda here in the community. Anybody can build a factory, but it takes the associates to bring it to heart.
You heard Jeff Helton say it. The administrator for Honda of South Carolina takes the associates to bring it to heart. A local boy who's returned. Jeff, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank all the sponsors and volunteers for making the 2003 Florence Heart Ball and today's Carolina People such a great success. If you haven't yet bought tickets, contact the American Heart Association at 843-665-0985.